And people in our community say that many individuals who are part of big extortion network, they entered our country through different visa programs. And it was a failure of our immigration system, not of our police system.
Most people in Canada at one point, either themselves or their parents or grandparents, were immigrants to this country at one time.
Prime Minister, MP said this in Parliament, that millions of people would be out of status in coming few years. And those people would be in a very vulnerable situation and could easily be pushed towards crime. So what your government is doing for preparing to deal with this challenge before it becomes a crisis?
Those who should go back, asylum seekers who are not going to ultimately get asylum, that we return them, track them and return them. And we're doing all of those things in about 2-3 weeks' time. We'll be releasing our immigration plan, our next immigration levels plan, and that will include many of the steps that we'll be taking around these issues.
How you tariffs in today's globalized economy?
So our job, my job, is to get the best possible deal, the lowest possible tariff for Canadian businesses with the United States relative to everyone else.
And many of them are considering bankruptcies or worse. What your government can do to help those people?
But I can't emphasize this enough, Shameel, which is that what we really need to do at the same time is build here at home. We have all the ability to have a bright future for Canada just building at home, and also diversifying our partners abroad, away from the United States.
Sometimes half of our income goes into taxes. So do you think there is any serious need to change our tax system?
If you have childcare in Ontario, it's worth $5,800 a year. That's the value of that.
People looking for hope, and they want to listen directly from you. When do you think the Canadian economy will really start turning the corner? With his very pragmatic and very centrist ideology, Prime Minister Mark Carney has brought a new, fresh approach to Canadian politics, a major reset in country's political culture. To talk about his recent announcements and priorities shaping his government agenda, he's with us today in Red Studio. Prime Minister, welcome.
Very pleasure to be here.
Prime Minister, we are celebrating Diwali this week, the festival of lights and hope. It's a day of hope, and people need some hope. And they say, you can give them hope.
Well, first, happy Diwali to you and to everyone listening. And in fact, I'm going to a Diwali celebration just after this, the first of many. It's a special time of year, and of course, with the contrast between the light and the darkness, and to some extent, if I can stretch the comparison, we Canadians have experienced some of the darkness this year, and out of darkness comes light, or at least what we are seeing in our country is Canadians coming together, moving towards the light, and seeing what we can make of the situation ourselves. And one thing I've emphasized, because I've heard it from Canadians, is really let's focus on what we can control. We can't control the United States. No one can. But we can control events here in Canada. We can control how many homes we build. We can control how we protect our communities. We can control how we build new partnerships around the world. And that's part of the lightness that we're seeing. One last point. We do it in a way that's unique to this country because it's not just about taking care of ourselves, but it's taking care of each other at the same time. And, of course, at Diwali, there's a huge emphasis on this.
Prime Minister, you said something similar in your yesterday's statement about combating crime.
Yes.
You said we cannot control what's happening beyond our borders, but we decide what happens here. And people in our community say that many individuals who are part of big extortion network, they entered our country through different visa programs. And it was a failure of our immigration system, not of our police system. So what steps your government can take to fix these gaps in our system?
Okay. Well, first is to recognize the scale of the problem and take action. On many levels, And so let me speak about what the federal government can do. Of course, it's where we are today. It's the Peel Police, it's the Toronto Police. Of course, the police forces, I know you reach across the country, so local police forces across the country and provincial police forces doing their job and enforcing the laws. But what can the federal government do? And let's start with the extortion. Let's start with immigration, and then let me make a few more points. First, on extortion, it's to go right to the heart of some of the worst perpetrators of this, the terrorist organizations such as the Bishnoi Gang. We've now listed the Bishnoi Gang as a terrorist organization. That brings more powers and more action against them. Secondly, with respect to immigration, without question, there's been a need to tighten immigration on multiple levels. And let me just give you some facts. What's happened since I've become Prime Minister over the course of the last 6 months. We have seen the level of asylum claims go down by 1/3. The number of foreign students go down by 2/3. The overall levels of temporary foreign workers go down by more than 70%. So all of the incoming levels have gone down quite sharply. But as you were just saying, but there are people here, and some of them are immigrants, new temporary Canadians, but many of them are Canadians. We shouldn't make the distinction. It's whoever commits the crime. What is the penalty for that crime? And what can the federal government do about that? And so part of what I announced yesterday is that we will be tabling legislation next week in the House of Commons that will do several things. It will make bail much harder to get for these violent crimes: home invasion, extortion, auto theft with violence, any crime that's committed with an element of a gang-related crime, or using a firearm. Bail becomes... You have to prove why you should get bail, as opposed to the current system, which presumes you will get bail, and then the Crown, the government, has to prove the opposite. So that's one aspect of big changes we're proposing to make. And the other aspect is to make sentencing much tougher. And then the third aspect of what the federal government can do, and is doing, is to have much more federal police. So we're announced yesterday 1,000 more RCMP officers to work on many of these issues: the gang-related issues, the terrorist-related issues, foreign interference in our country, and then working with provincial and local police. And this morning I announced 1,000 more border security agents. So because we also have to tighten at our southern border, because that's where a lot of the guns and the drugs come through, and also some individuals. So we're reinforcing on all aspects: policing, we're reinforcing the laws, we're tightening the immigration system, and we're working with our provincial counterparts. And if I may say one final thing, again, cooperation is very important. So I'm in touch with the head of the Canadian Police Association, Mr. Carrick. I sat down with Premier Ford here in Ontario yesterday afternoon after my announcement to talk about how we can work better together. That's the same, whether it's Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim as another example, and across the country. We need to work together. Federal government needs to do its job, and we are doing our job. We're getting tough on these issues.
Prime Minister, MP said this in Parliament, that millions of people would be out of status in coming few years. And those people would be in a very vulnerable situation and could easily be pushed towards crime. So what your government is doing for preparing to deal with this challenge before it becomes a crisis?
Well, I think, yes. So let's take a step back on the immigration system, and I'll give some perspective, if I may, which is, if we go back 6-7 years, the number of what are called non-permanent residents, so temporary foreign workers, students, asylum seekers, other people who've come to Canada and haven't yet become citizens. Most people in Canada at one point, either themselves or their parents or grandparents, were immigrants to this country at one time. But these are people who haven't yet become citizens. That used to be about 3% of the population. Just before I became Prime Minister, it had gone up to 7.5% of our population. So a big increase. And so that's what this MP, I don't remember who said it, but was referring to. And so our challenge is to, and this is what we're doing, is to make sure that we rapidly build up our ability for those who are here, who are working, who are building a life, to do that. Those who should go back, asylum seekers who are not going to ultimately get asylum, that we return them, track them and return them. That we reduce the flow of new temporary Canadians, temporary residents in Canada, and I just gave you the figures on that, so we can manage down the overall level in a responsible way. And we're doing all of those things in about 2-3 weeks' time. We'll be releasing our immigration plan, our next immigration levels plan, and that will include many of the steps that we'll be taking around these issues.
Let's move to tariffs now.
Yes.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford is speaking against U.S. tariffs, and he even quoted former President Ronald Reagan. And on the same time, he is putting tariffs on Canadian Chinese EVs. So as an economist, how you tariffs in today's globalized economy?
Well, there's several things. The quote of former President Ronald Reagan was recognizing that ultimately somebody pays the tariff, and it's the consumer. It's the people listening who ultimately pay the tariff, because the company passes it on, the price goes up eventually, and you pay the cost of the tariff. So as an economist, I say that if somebody is trading fairly, it's better not to have tariffs between those countries, and much of our economy has been built on that reality particularly with the United States. But we should recognize as well as Canada has the most free trade agreements of any major economy with other countries in the world. We haven't always taken advantage of them. We need to. That's one thing my government's focused on, is that we take advantage of trade with other partners. But let's go to the current situation with the United States, which has been on everyone's mind. They have changed their minds on the values of tariffs. I don't agree with their policy, but I recognize that is their policy, and I don't expect it to change. So our job, my job, is to get the best possible deal, the lowest possible tariff for Canadian businesses with the United States relative to everyone else. At present, we have the best deal. 85% of our trade with the United States has no tariff. Our overall level of tariff is a little more than 5%. The world's average tariff with the United States is now 17%. So we're much lower than others, but we're not stopping there, because we have issues in the auto sector. We have issues in the steel sector, in forest products. We have other prospective issues that might come in film and others. So we're working hard with the Americans to get an understanding to keep those tariffs as low as possible for as long as possible. But I can't emphasize this enough, Shameel, which is that what we really need to do at the same time is build here at home. We have all the ability to have a bright future for Canada just building at home, and also diversifying our partners abroad, away from the United States. It's not a judgment on them. It's just recognizing their policy, but it's building up with other countries.
And what about Chinese EVs?
And, well, with respect to Chinese EVs, there are a variety of issues to consider. One of them is the impact on our domestic auto industry at a time when it's under pressure because of American tariffs. But it's also a question of our broader trade relationship with China. And if I, again, can provide some context, China is our second largest trading partner. We have, as a country, for good reason, have not had dialogue with the Chinese for a number of years. We are restarting that dialogue, that partnership. As we speak today, our foreign minister is in China. I met with the Chinese Prime Minister a few weeks ago. It's likely I'll meet with the Chinese president in due course. And whether it's Chinese EV, Canadian agricultural products, other opportunities for trade, I believe that we are going to see a much broader trade with China, which will be good for Canada. We'll do this in a responsible way. It'll lessen our dependence on the United States, but we have to do it in a smart way to finish, again, back to your question, in a way that ensures that our auto sector, which is under pressure because of American tariffs, has a chance to adjust and become stronger itself.
Two more questions. Affordability is a big concern.
Absolutely.
And in our community, it started with housing boom.
Yep.
Many people took big mortgage loans far beyond their capacity. And now they are on the edge. And many of them are considering bankruptcies or worse. What your government can do to help those people?
Well, the first thing to do is tackle all aspects of affordability. So day one in office, we cut the consumer carbon tax. After the election, when I was elected as Prime Minister, we came in and we cut income taxes for everyone in Canada who pays tax. So 22 million Canadians will receive from this year an income tax cut. Cutting taxes on first-time home buyers. Making sure that there's more competition in the telecom sector. We made a series of decisions around that so that the broadband costs go down. Making sure that those Canadians who may be stretched receive childcare if they need it. We're backing that. Dental care, pharmacare, and making sure as housing more broadly. I know the example you're giving is somebody who has a mortgage already, so everything I just said is relevant to them. But for those who are starting out, cutting the cost of a first-time home buyer, GST, no GST on first-time homes, but also fundamentally building hundreds and hundreds of thousands of more homes that are affordable. And not far from the studio in Downsview, we just announced the first phase of Build Canada Homes, almost 65,000 affordable homes that will be built with Canadian technology, Canadian workers, Canadian lumber, affordable by Canadian families.
Prime Minister, for middle-class Canadian, the thing that hurt most are our tax system. Canadians feel that we have too many taxes and pay too much taxes. Sometimes half of our income goes into taxes. So do you think there is any serious need to change our tax system?
I think that there's several issues here. So where we are today, we need to tackle affordability in every respect. And I just gave examples. We've cut taxes. We're preserving the social programs, particularly for the most vulnerable Canadians and middle-class Canadians, to help them, support them. Childcare, if you have childcare in Ontario, it's worth $5,800 a year. That's the value of that low-cost childcare to that family per child. So these are big and important support programs. But the second thing we need to do is we need to get government the right size. Our budget's coming up in a few weeks. You're going to see us spend less, eliminate waste, duplication of programs and others, so that we as a country can invest more. And as we invest more in housing, in new energy, in port infrastructure, new trade routes, as we build all of that out, that is going to create a much stronger economy. And in a stronger economy, we can make the bigger changes to our tax system that I understand that people want.
Finally, my last question. We talked about hope in the beginning, and people looking for some hope, and they want to listen directly from you. And when do you think the Canadian economy will really start turning the corner?
I think, well, first, let's be clear about a couple of things. We are being hit by the biggest economic shock, fundamental economic shock that we've seen in generations, okay, because of the U.S. change. But our economy is still growing. Our economy, the IMF, International Organization, just put out their forecast. They think the Canadian economy will be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 over the course of the next 2 years, first point. Secondly, over the last 6 months, we have actually grown jobs in this economy. Third point, wages are actually growing now faster than inflation. Yes, there are food products and others where the inflation has been higher, but overall level of prices, finally, that rate of inflation is growing less rapidly than wages. The cost of living is still too high, that is clear, but we're starting to move in the right direction. So we're starting to move in the right direction. So the base is sound. Your point, though, is when are we really going to feel that momentum? Really feel that momentum. And in order for that to happen, we need to pass the budget that we are going to propose in 2 weeks' time. Because this budget is generational. This will help define this country, the scale of investment to create hundreds of thousands of high-paying, high-skilled jobs for people who are listening to this program. If you're young and you want to go into the skilled trades, with our budget, we are going to create those jobs. But also to create a much stronger economy so that we can't be sideswiped by decisions south of the border, and that we are in control of our own destiny. And that is truly turning the corner. And that's not just turning the corner, if I can keep the metaphor, it's driving where we want to go. And that's what we're going to deliver.
Prime Minister, any other message you would like to share with our community?
Well, I want to go back to where you started, because this is a special time. And I'm going to mix my my metaphors. There's a great Canadian songwriter, poet, Leonard Cohen, who died a few years ago. And he talks about ringing a bell that's not perfect. And there's a crack in everything, but that's how the light gets in. And I think the message of darkness and light at the heart and message of hope of Diwali is part of what we're experiencing as a country because of the community that listens to your program, because of the core values, because those values are Canadian values, because we take care of each other, but also because we're a strong nation. We're an ambitious nation. And we can see the light, and we're going to move towards the light and create that light for our country, for our neighbors, for our children.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for coming to our studio. Thank you very much.
A great pleasure. Thank you very much.